All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Alexa Conversations Office Hours. My name is Justin Jeffers, and I am an evangelist at Amazon, and I teach people how to build Alexa skills. So today is we're going to be covering office hours. So hopefully you brought your questions, and if so, please ask away in the chat, and I will answer them. So just want to, before I get started, and to give you some time to start putting your questions in the chat. I have a few little items here I want to cover. First of all, in case you're unaware, there is a hackathon that's taking place as we speak. It's the Alexa Skills Challenge for Alexa Conversations. And here is the sign up page for that. It's up on DevPost. So if you go to alexaconversations.devpost.com, I'll drop this link into the chat. And here you can sign up and submit your skill. And one of the requirements is that it uses Alexa Conversations. So there are over $101,000 in prizes, and all of the prize categories and the amounts of money that you win for being selected as the top skill in these categories are listed here. So I would highly recommend that you take a look at this if you haven't already. And there's also some, clarifications of rules and all that stuff as well that are listed on this page, the judging criteria and everything that you need to know in order to get into the hackathon, and all the information you need to know about the hackathon is here. There's also a really great resources page that you can go to, and this resources page has a bunch of great things available. So there is a Slack channel for participants of the hackathon, which I happen to have open right here. We're going in here on a regular basis and answering people's questions. And so there's also a thread here for teams. People are going in here and asking for, hey, do you want to join my team? So I would highly recommend that you check that out. And I will share the link to join the Slack channel in the chat here. Good morning, Spruce Moose. How's it going? And so there's the sign up link for the Slack group. And then we also have this contest office hours schedule. So in addition to office hours, we are also doing some dedicated streams about Alexa Conversations. And so last week, Sam and I, on Tuesday and Thursday, walked through the pet match tutorial. So what is the pet match tutorial? Well, that's a step-by-step guide on how to get started with Alexa Conversations. So I'll drop the link to that in the chat as well, just in case you haven't gotten started with that yet. Hello, Laldi Labs. Thanks for tuning in. While I'm going over a few of the housekeeping items here regarding timelines, links, and everything, please provide your questions in the chat. I see a couple have come through already. So, I'll be getting to your questions in just a moment. Just want to, give everyone a few heads up about a few things. So, okay, I just dropped the link into the pet match tutorial. Sam and I walked through that over 2 days last week, Tuesday and Thursday. And, we had it be an open forum so you could ask questions while we were working through building the skill live on air, which was really, really cool. We got a lot of really great questions during that. And the recordings for that are available here on Twitch. If you go to the twitch.tv/Amazon Alexa/videos, you can view the replays. And then this week, Nathan Grice, the author of the pizza reference skill, which I happen to have open right here, he and I on Tuesday and Thursday will be walking through a teardown of the skill. So in GitHub, we just have the source code available for the pizza reference skill. And so if you go into the developer console, do I still have one open? Yes, I do. And you go to create a skill, we'll just call this pizza. And one of the options that you have when you get to the template selector is the pizza ordering example. So if you select that, you can actually look at the model that Nathan created to handle a complex ordering case. So we're actually going to be tearing that down on Tuesday and Thursday, and that stream starts at 10. And you'll be able to learn some pretty complex use cases for Alexa Conversations, and I'm really looking forward to it. if you can think about, last week was the Alexa Conversations 101 level course with PetMatch. So you can think of this week's material as the Alexa Conversations 300 level classes. So it's designed to take your knowledge that you learned in PetMatch and expand upon it, because PetMatch teaches you the foundational mental model knowledge that you need about build components, and then Alexa, the pizza reference skill, takes that knowledge and cranks it up to 11, so to speak. Cool. So let's see. One other thing I wanted to mention is the amount of time that you have left. You have about 21 days until the September 14th submission deadline. Every time I stream, I'm just counting down the days just to demonstrate, just to illustrate how time is constant and it's constantly counting down. And so make sure you submit your skill early, so that way it gives you some time to handle that back and forth between yourself and the certification team. Very rarely do you get your skill published and certified on the very first try. There's usually a little bit of back and forth, and so if everyone's trying to submit their skill at the exact same time to get certified, it's just going to make your life a little bit more stressful, because it's like, ooh, are they going to get to it? And so just doing it sooner rather than later helps. And also make sure that you put some time into your demo. You'll have to submit a demo too, and the instructions are in the dev post. So, okay, we've gotten a bunch of different questions. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to the top of the chat here and start answering them. So here we go. Oh, also, I just want to say we had a lot of questions over the weekend, and there was one in particular that I gave an answer to, but I'm not sure if it's the best answer, and I'm not sure if it's going to be asked during office hours. So I'll hold off on saying what that question was, and then if I see it in the chat, I will bring it up, and if we have some time later, I will bring it up, regardless if it comes up in the chat or not. But I did get a really great question over the weekend. Okay, let's do this. So Real Briam says, can you please point me to a tutorial that explains how to interact with a website that I currently have on AWS? I would prefer Node.js and JavaScript implementations. Okay, so I'm not quite sure. And then there's a follow-up here. I would like to have interactivity with my website via Q&A. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what the ask is here. Are you trying to, from an Alexa skill, interact with your website? I'm not quite sure. In order to do something like this, you would want, like, say you have an API that gives you use to pull information out of, like, a database on your website. If you wanted to voice enable that, you could use Alexa Conversations and create a bunch of different API definitions to pull that information from, and display that. But I'm not quite sure what it is that you really want to do here. So please, in the chat, provide some background. If it is what you want to, if what you want to do is to make a voice user interface for your website, and you already have some backend plumbing for doing some API calls, you could definitely use the PetMatch tutorial, which I pasted in the chat a little earlier, to help you get started with Alexa Conversations, and then you can make those calls. But I'm not quite sure if I'm answering your question. So please provide a little bit more information in the chat. I'm going to move on to the next question. So this one is, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, if it's kid or quid. There's no U in here. QID Coder says, I'm trying to build a feature where you tell Alexa a list of items and Alexa will store them in a database. Do you have any recommendations on how to get started with that feature? Good question. So you have several different options. If you were to use Alexa Conversations, you could use a list type slot, and when you speak to the skill, when you create your dialogue, you could capture the list values, and then when you write your API definition that gets called at the end, or not the end, but when it's determined that it's collected all of the required slots for that API definition, then what you would do is in your skill endpoint would be to then save that information into the database. The other option that you have would be to not use Alexa Conversations to do that. And you could create, I think there's a slot that you're able to use, I think that you could use to save like multiple values and then use like either persistent attributes. In fact, you could use persistent attributes from Alexa Conversations based skill. Then yeah, it depends on like once you've got that information in your backend, it's up to you to determine where you want to save that. So if you're saving it in persistent attributes, you could do that. The one thing with persistent attributes is that again, I need to know a little bit more information. If you're saving it per user, then persistent attributes would be like the way to go, because it matches the user ID to the data. So that way, like, you know, if I'm using the skill, I'll have my set of things saved. And then if you're using the skill, your set of things that you said will be saved. So, you know, it makes that localized. So those are a couple options that you can use. Let's see, we have Daniel. Oh, yes, I've seen your name before, and I'm always like, how do I pronounce this? So I'm just going to call you Danny. Sorry. Let's see. It says, morning, Justin. It would be great if you can review with us how to implement ISP subscription, of course, preferably in Python. Okay, so ISP, I know I want to keep this directed towards Alexa Conversations. We do have our normal office hours scheduled Tuesdays at 9, which on twitch.tv/Amazon Alexa. So if I do have some time, let me put a star by this. Come back to this question if time permits. So I'd like to come back to this question if time permits, but what I will do is I will drop into the chat an example of ISP, and I don't know if we have a Python sample. So let me type in skill. Let's see. We have Node.js, Python fact, Python quiz game. Let's see, workshop in skill purchasing. Here we go. Look at that. Skill sample Python fact in skill purchasing. There you go. So there is a sample on how to do in skill purchasing with Python right here. And so one thing to note, if you're trying to do in skill purchasing from a skill that has Alexa Conversations, you'll need to work on delegation from your interaction model to Alexa Conversations to handle, or sorry, from Alexa Conversations to your interaction model to handle the ISP related pieces. And let me drop in the chat. I thought I had that open somewhere. Here it is. This is the documentation on how to add Alexa Conversations to an existing skill. And actually, that's not the one. I want the handoff dialogue management to and from Alexa Conversations. Here we go. So this should help you, delegate to and from the different pieces. So if you wanted to do, because what will happen is if you want to do anything that's ISP related, you'll need to handle that from the interaction model side of things. And then if you need to go back to Alexa Conversations, then you can use the delegation to hand off and get back into your Alexa Conversations dialogue. But typically, probably what I would end up doing is set it so like I would use Alexa Conversations to like find a recommendation or do something, to lead the user to the in-skill product that I want to offer to them. And then once I make that offer, switch over to Alexa to the interaction model, handle all of that, and then go from there. Great question. So actually, I don't think I'm going to need to come back to that question if time permits, because I've already given you an example. If you have any follow-up questions, I know we've got the Slack group, and it's for Alexa Conversations, but if you ask an ISP question there, I'll gladly answer it. So Okay, moving on. Let's see. We got question here from Laldi Labs. Building the model seems to take a very long time. Would you advise keeping utterance sets, for instance, to the absolute minimum to reduce the edit, build, test cycle time, and only adding variants after the minimal happy path is working? Yes, that's a good question. So, and I think Laldi Labs, I think you have a different username on the Slack group, but I think I saw you post something about this morning about you're noticing that your model training times were taking a long time. So I reached out, if you're the same person that I saw this morning on Slack, I reached out to you to see if there was any information, if it was just the one model. But, you know, Sam and I spoke about this during the pet match streams last week, is that, you know, the more complicated your model becomes, there's a possibility that it could take longer for the skill to build. And so, you know, I think you have some good, you know, ideas here about like keeping your utterance sets for a minimum. Yeah, if you're doing like a lot of rapid testing and you're doing a lot of miniature changes that you want to like test, you know, keeping the size small would help, you know, reduce that build time. And so, yeah, I think that's a good approach to take. You know, putting in the absolute minimum and trying to like test your model, and then, you know, once you've you know, got that minimum viable product part working, then you can go back and make your model more robust by going through and adding what those utterance sets are. And another thing that I would add to that process would be to, you know, go through, create your happy path, get everything working with your happy path, and then have other people interact with the skill and like observe them and listen to how they say things that are different from your skill, and see if Alexa Conversations is able to handle it. Because you do get that AI assist, and it does try to break out and figure out how people can deviate. But, you know, if somebody says something totally out of left field and it doesn't work, then you'll want to go through and collect that and add it to the model in a way. So, so that way it'll work. So, yes, I would definitely say in the beginning, you know, optimize your build for being able to rapidly get things built out and get your happy path supported, and then go back and expand out and get all the other pieces into the skill. Okay, moving on. We got Bikwa here that says, let's see. Hello, Justin. I'm currently building Alexa apps with VoiceFlow. They are, however, not accepted by Amazon. VoiceFlow, I'm not quite sure what you mean by they're not accepted by Amazon. You can publish skills and build skills with VoiceFlow, and in fact, they are working on bringing support for Alexa Conversations into their offerings. So, you know, it's not presently available yet, but I'm excited because it's going to be cool to be able to use their tools to build an Alexa Conversation skill at some point. And, you know, I would recommend like staying tuned in on their website to hear when they make the announcement that it's available. But, you know, the VoiceFlow is a great place to build Alexa skills. Okay, we got a question here from Trade Last. Oh, Joel Favreau says hi. Hi, Joel. Thanks for tuning in. A question here from Trade Last. I'm going to go ahead and, oops. All right. The focus of this office hours Alexa Conversations, general Alexa questions can be covered in tomorrow's. Yes, thank you. That's not a question, but thanks for that answer. Let's see. Joel says, please, could you share the best practice for the welcome message? I have included the welcome in the dialog, and it generates an error during the build. Okay. So for Alexa Conversations, there is that welcome prompt, and let's see, I think I have my, yes, okay, let me back out of here, and you know what, I'm gonna go full screen just for a moment. I have tons of skills in here, and just want to make sure that I'm not showing you anything I shouldn't be showing you. Um, okay, so let me switch back over. In the responses screen, you can see that we have this welcome prompt, and you can specify, what the welcome messages are. What I would recommend that you do, if you're using Alexa Conversations as the default dialogue management, and actually, let me take a step back. In general, when you're using Alexa, when you have a skill and you have a welcome message, you want your welcome message to be short but sweet and sort of explain to them and give them some context as to what they're doing right now. So if you'll notice, we have, if you just ignore the fact that we have multiple here, if you just look at the first one, the first thing that we do is we just welcome them to the skill. So we say, welcome to pet match. And then we tell them what the skill does. So this says, I can find the best dog for you. And then we just ask them a question, what are 2 things you're looking for in a dog? So you can see we've done 3 things with this welcome prompt. So we said, we told them what the skill is, what the skill does, and ask them a question. Now, these can get incredibly long, and I've seen examples where they're just so long that it's just like, oh, just get to the point. So I would say, try to convey what your skill does in the minimum amount of words as possible, and then also add some variation. So you can see here, one of the cool things with Alexa Conversations is you can use APLA, and with APLA, you can, or Alexa presentation language for audio. Apologize for using acronyms without explaining what they are, but it's the audio framework for Alexa presentation language, and it's built into the responses for Alexa Conversations. And so this allows you to set a set of random items, and then it will randomly pull one of them from here. So, and you actually don't have to define this welcome prompt in your sample dialog. You define it here in the responses. You just look for the welcome one, and when you open the skill with the Alexa Conversation set as the default dialogue manager, it will respond, and so you don't actually have to put it into the dialogue itself. And so Joel said here, I've included the welcome in the dialogue, and it generates an error during the build. So so yes, I think the reason why you're getting that dialogue, that build error, is because you're putting the welcome prompt into the sample dialog, and then you probably have to choose. You'll have to then at that point choose a dialogue act, and I don't think there's a welcome dialogue act. So at that point, it's like, well, what is a dialogue act for welcome? So I would say just don't include it there, because you don't define it in the sample dialog. You define it in that prompt. Okay, so W. Giorgio says, moving on to the next question. Oh, interesting. When I copied and pasted that, the text, the icon got converted into prime. All right, and the other icon. Okay, I have a question close to Quid Croder. I was wondering if we can use persistent attributes in your response on a completed API. So you can definitely save whatever you want into the persistent attributes once Alexa Conversations sends information over to your skills endpoint. Well, it sends a request to your skills endpoint for your API. If you think about it, like, it's essentially the same thing that takes place. The request is different, but like when you're using an interaction model and you get an intent request, you get a JSON object that gets sent to your backend code. And if you're using the SDK, you'll be using a handler. So you just check in that case to see if the request type is an intent request. And then, based upon the intent name, you then, have a handler that can handle that request. And in that handler, you save the information to persistent attributes. Same thing applies with Alexa Conversations. The only thing that's different is instead of getting an intent request in your backend code, you're going to get a request that's called dialog.api.invoked. And then, so you would have a handler with a can handle that looks for that type, dialog.api.invoked. And then you look at what the name of the API is. So whatever API you want it to be called, let's say pet match, for example, we've got the get recommendation. So let's say we wanted to save the last or we wanted to have a log of all the matches or all the recommendations that we gave, we would then, in the handle function for that handler, use the persistent attributes manager to save the recommendation information. If we had a list, we would just append that item to the end of the list and use that as a history. So you can definitely use persistent attributes in your handler. Great question. All right, so Joel says the welcome response was defined as a request arg dialog act, but doesn't work. Yeah, so the welcome, you shouldn't have to, this is like a follow-up to Joel's earlier question, so I'm just going to drop it right in here. Yeah, that welcome response, you shouldn't have to define it in the sample dialog. Just having it defined in your responses, Alexa Conversations will do that automatically. And in fact, if you delete, in fact, I don't think it will let you, the UI won't let you delete the welcome response because it's a requirement. If it allowed you to delete it and you hit build, it would fail because it wouldn't have the thing there. And yes, TradeLast has a good point here. TradeLast says, I think the dialogues need to start with the user utterance. The welcome message is a built-in welcome response. That is correct. Thank you, TradeLast, for the assist. I'm gonna drop this right in here, even though it doesn't follow the flow of things. They're all relevant. So cool, to the same question. All right. Now you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing here. I'm organizing these questions because I do send all of these over to the Alexa Conversations team, so that way they know what you all are asking about. Okay, so then Joel says, I decided to remove welcome. Thank you. Okay, cool. So it looks like that question was answered. So we're going to go to QuidCoder again. And let me do a quick scroll. We got 30 minutes left. All right, I got to pick up the pace on answering questions here. All right, let's do that. QuidCoder says, is there any way to clear slot values after dialog is completed so that if we want to trigger the dialog again, previously stored slot values won't be used and Alexa will ask again for missing slots? So this was the question that came up over the weekend that I was like, oh, this is an interesting one. And I tagged a few of my colleagues, but being the weekend, it is, didn't get a response, but that's all right. I'm going to get some more, insights into this. I do have an answer, but I'm not confident it's the best answer. So that's why I reached out to my colleagues, because I wanted to make sure that I was giving the best answer. But I'll go ahead and give the answer that I'm not too confident in, and I will definitely post a follow-up to this in the Alexa Slack, or the Skills Challenge Slack group. But one way to clear this out is to do a delegation from Alexa Conversations to your interaction model, and in doing so, it will clear the previously collected slot values. And then what you do is you go from your interaction model and you delegate back. So you delegate from Alexa Conversations to an interaction model, then from the interaction model back to Alexa Conversations, and it'll start over fresh, as long as you don't provide values, because one of the things that you can do when you hand off to Alexa Conversations is define values. So as long as you just leave these slot values blank here, it will reset. That is a solution, but I don't think it's the best solution. That's why I was like, when I answered that over the weekend, I was like, I want to get some information, because I bet there's a better way to do it than that. Because there might be a way to do it with another dialog act with the offer API, and you offer the same API. And I think that might make it reset. I haven't tested that. And so again, I wanted to get some insights from my colleagues before I declare what I just gave as the best answer, because I'm not confident it is the best answer. Let's see. Okay, Kirksey's responding about saving information into persistent attributes. Let's see, did I skip anything? I can give parameters. Yeah, okay. I can use an API. Are these Relibrium says I can give parameters and then it would show me a report. I can use an API. are these comments here in relation to, you were the one who asked the very first question, right? Yes. Are these in relation to your site? You want to, so it sounds like what you want to do, what you're trying to do is wrap an API or wrap a voice user interface around your API. And so what I would recommend that you do is take a look at the pet match tutorial and then learn the basics of Alexa conversations. And then, from there, create API definitions for each one of your APIs that you have for your website that you want to wrap your voice around. And then, come up with that conversation that you're going to have to bring those question and answers together. And then try building the skill that way. So it sounds like you already have an API in place. So Alexa Conversations would be a great tool for you for that. Okay, let's see. Is it a real estate analysis website? Oh, it is a real estate website that you can show analysis based on some parameters. I would also want Alexa uses the report to present itself to the audience. Okay, yeah, so I would just recommend that you use, let me just drop this up here. Keep that organized. No, I wanted to put that here. Yes, so Alexa Conversations would be a good fit for that. So I would recommend, and I'll drop it in the chat. I know I did it earlier. Alexa.design/ oh, you can't see me typing because my face is in the way, but it's okay. I'm going to hit send and then you'll see it anyway. So if you go to alexa.design/AC tutorial, that'll help you get started with Alexa Conversations. All right, let's see here. We have S King Baby says, oh no, S King Ubby one says, if you're looking for an open-ended list, you can't do that in Alexa. You can use the list slot with Alexa Conversations though. Okay, so yep, that's more questions and more stuff about the app that Realibrium is building. Questions report, I can use API. Yep. Yeah, I would totally recommend that you take a look at the pet match tutorial, learn the basics of Alexa Conversations, and then, and by the way, that's written in Node.js. You were asking earlier, you would prefer Node.js implementations. And so then you can learn about how it calls APIs, and then you can learn, figure out how to add that into your, how to make it work for your use case. Oh, P. Karthik says hi. Karthik's on. Thanks for tuning in. What time is it over there where you're located? I think it's getting late for you. Is it like 10 a.m. Or 10 p.m.? Sorry. Let's see. We got another thing from a response here from S King B1 says, Quick Coder, have you looked at using the list process in Alexa? Can you intercept the addition item to a custom list? Oh, addition of an item to a custom list. S King of B is helping Quid Coder with the earlier question about capturing things into lists. There is a list slot type. When you create a slot with Alexa Conversations, you can specify I want a list. In fact, the pizza skill uses it to capture the ingredients. And so I would recommend that you take a look at that. And it just so happens that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, Nathan Grice and I, the author of, not me, Nathan is the author of the pizza reference skill, and I are going to be doing a deep dive and teardown of the skill, and it uses lists. So we'll be covering lists tomorrow. So I would recommend that you tune in. Okay, got another question here from Sandwich20. I like that. It's like sandwich and Twitch combined together. I love your usernames, by the way. Can handle out of domain with custom API handler? If so, can I see what a user's input ended up out of the domain questions? So when handling out of domain stuff in Alexa Conversations, you have a template that you can use, which is the out of domain template. So give me a second here to pull that up. Where is it? There it is. And it's another one of those templates that you can't delete. There we go. It's another one of those templates that responses that you can't delete. It's out of domain with underscores. And you can specify a bunch of different things here. By default, it says, sorry, I don't understand. But you'll want to add a bunch of different things here. You do not get the what was said in this list. You can't see what the user said. However, I do think that you can, there is a way how to view in the developer console. If you go to the test tab and if you open up the device logs, there is a way like how to get like some more information about how Alexa Conversations tried to interpret what the customer said. And I believe that is outlined somewhere in the docs. Debug and Alexa Conversations skill model, I think, is where you want to see that. Yes, right here. So you've got directive structure, and this is a great thing to know just in general. And in fact, I had planned to talk about this when I opened the office hours this morning, and it slipped my mind. So I'm glad Sandwich20, your question, brought it out. So you won't be able to get like what the user said at runtime, but during testing, you'll be able to see, how it predicted the model. So I'm going to go ahead and share this. I think I grabbed the link, but we'll just grab it again just in case. But this will help, with capturing that debugging info. And if you're using like the voice, like, because when you're in the test simulator, I got too many tabs. Here we go. You can either type what you're going to say, or you can press and hold the microphone and speak. And so you could, use, the microphone to speak, and then use the information here to see how it predicted what the model and what it was going to use. And so I would recommend that you take a look at that. And in fact, you know what? Oh, no, that's fine. Giving you the link that I gave you was fine. I was going to, copy the anchor link, but you only have to scroll down, just a few, I don't know, maybe is that 100 pixels? I don't know how many pixels that is, but it's not that far. So yes, you can use that to help debug your model. Okay, let's see. We got a question here from Zach Zeta. I had the whole thing type out, and I think you hit every point. Nice. Okay, great. I'm glad I answered your question before you had a chance to ask it. Had that internet mind meld going on. Sandwich20 says, how to use handoff to switch between conversations between normal. Ooh, yes. Good question. So I earlier dropped the link to the docs that explains that, but I will share it again. So here is the documentation on how to do that. There is also the pizza reference skill, which Nathan and I will be covering tomorrow. I know I've said this a couple times already on this stream, but if you're just tuning in for the first time, tomorrow Nathan and I will be going over the pizza reference skill, which is an advanced use case for Alexa Conversations. So I'll just drop that into the chat there. And if you go to the index.js file and you take a look for Delegate, you can see here this handler. Let me scroll up. If you look at the can handle, it's an intent request. So that's not Alexa Conversations. That's for the interaction model. And the intent is the yes intent. So there's a case in the pizza reference skill where the user says yes, it's going to forward them over to Alexa Conversations. And in this example, what happens is one of the questions that you're asked while interacting with the skill is, do you want to customize one of the pizza specials? So if you say yes, I want to customize the meat lovers, or the vegetarian, or whatever option that you choose, then it will forward over to Alexa Conversations using this dialog.delegate request. And you can see the target here is amazon.conversations. And then you have an opportunity to provide it an updated request, and you can provide it the name. So, if they had chosen meat lovers, then, meat lovers would be the value that gets sent over. And this name here is the utterance set that you want to start. And what's cool about this is, since it's using the utterance set, you don't have to start at the beginning of the conversation in Alexa Conversations. You can start partway through, and giving the utterance set allows you to set that context. which is awesome. So then if you want to go back to the skill, you still use if you want to go back to the interaction model from Alexa Conversations, you still use the dialog.delegate request, but the target becomes skill instead of Amazon.conversations. So that is how you go back, and that is outlined here in the docs. So again, Nathan will be on tomorrow, and so he'll be demonstrating that and showing that. And if you have any questions about the pizza reference skill, or if you aren't familiar with the pizza reference skill, we have the code that I shared in the chat. But if you go to create a new skill, you can select it as a template to get started. And so if I just do, I think I already created a pizza foo, but didn't actually finish earlier. But anyway, if I do create skill, you'll see on the next page where you can choose a template, you can choose the pizza ordering example. So choose that, look at it, and then you can ask questions, and Nathan will be able to answer tomorrow. Let's see. Let's move on to the next question here. We have Tim To TD something. I don't know how to pronounce the whole thing, so just going to call you Tim. Tim says, "Oops, I didn't get the username." They added this reply feature, which is cool, but it gets in the way when I try to copy and paste. Okay, is there enough time today? Can you show the debug Alexa Conversations using CloudWatch and device log? We got about 18 minutes. If we do, I will. Let's keep moving. Zach Zeta says, I think he posted this for question. Yep, okay, yep, thanks. Also may be mistaken, but I believe the pizza example does not start with, yep, that's correct, Zeta. Kirk C says, yep, cool, thank you for helping out with those questions. Sandwich says, thanks, okay. Note the add directive target, yep, okay, cool, awesome. Thanks for answering questions. There's no welcome act, yes. So since there's no welcome dialog act, just use the welcome prompt and remove the welcome from your sample dialog, and it will work. Okay, try making a quick new skill in the console and look for pizza ordering sample. Yep, cool, I just walked through how to do that. Thank you everyone in the chat for being very helpful. I wish I could see the scroll real time while answering questions, because I realize I'm answering some of the questions that you have helped answer. So let me see if I can keep, I got 17 minutes to go. Let's do this. In AXC, I imagine that's Alexa Conversations. I like the acronym here. How would you approach supporting an utterance with a slot value that could either be an Amazon.number or a Amazon.number, a zip code, or a custom slot type, the word nearby with intents? I would structure the conversation differently, but is there a neat way to handle this in a single dialogue, or would it need to be two different dialogues? In both cases, I will be invoking the same API. Oh, I see. Okay. So you want to be able to nearby versus the zip code. Yeah, with an intent-based model, yeah, you could have two different intents. One that takes in a model, one that takes a number, one that takes a string, and then it doesn't matter your entry point. Your intent knows what to do with what it has, and then you pass it to the API. So I understand what it is that yeah. So with Alexa Conversations, one thing that you might be able to do is can you add synonyms to Amazon.number? If you could add a synonym, if you could add a synonym to Amazon.number, you could add nearby and add so add nearby would be a value, and then the thing that it resolves to, or no. Well, you would want to create some dummy number that wouldn't be possible for anyone to say, and then you would have that slot type that has nearby plus a bunch of different synonyms for nearby, and then all the number values. And then if they did say nearby, it would get captured into that slot. And then you could actually use that in an interaction model or in Alexa conversations. So I would experiment with that. That assumes that you can do that. And what I'm talking about is, let me go to another example here. Oops. Let me go to another example here. In fact, it doesn't even matter if it's Alexa conversations or not. Well, let me just grab a skill here. Here we go. We'll use my cactus. And let's go to slot types. I'm just going to add, I'm not going to save this, but if I add number. Oh, that's right. I need to create a name. We'll just call this foo. And, oh, wait. No. That's not what I need. Shoot. I don't need a custom slot type. Sorry. Delete. Add a slot type. We want an existing slot type, and we want number. Let's see. Postal address. Oh, look at that. There is a postal address slot type. This is in the EN US region. It's the first time I've seen this. Is this new? Okay, so we've added it. And now if I go over to the postal address, I should be able to do nearby. And then I can put whatever synonyms I want to put in here, close, and then if you were to use this, you would be able to capture both postal addresses and nearby. And then in your backend, whether you're using Alexa conversations or not, you can then see that, oh, hey, this is the value that was given. And so you can use that. And then you don't have to have multiple versions of your sample dialog showing nearby versus a zip code, because you've expanded the slot type with a new value and some synonyms. Okay, let's move on. I got 13 minutes. I'm looking at my watch because I have a meeting, but I can definitely be late to it. So I might end up going over. Let's see. Realibrium says, I currently have a couple of EC2s. Can Alexa be run in those resources instead of paying? Yes, so your backend can be whatever you want it to be. So you could definitely set up an EC2 instance. One thing to note about using an AWS Lambda function is that you get 1 million requests per month for free, and it resets. So your overall infrastructure costs shouldn't be too expensive. But yes, you can definitely use an EC2 instance. TradeLast says, if I have Alexa Conversations pure skill and I use API handlers in my Lambda, can I set and retrieve session attributes within those handlers just as I would with an interaction model skill? I believe you can. I haven't tried it, but I believe you can. So yes, I don't have firsthand experience with it, but I think you can. So I would suggest trying it out. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, go to the Slack group and say, hey, it doesn't work. And we can submit that to the Alexa Conversations team. Okay, let's see. All right, Kirk's asking some questions about AWS. Let's see, TradeLast says, in your slot clearing solution, delegate to IAM and then delegate back. Don't you need to trigger an IAM handler somehow? If you want to do that transparently, the kind of intent you need to handle if you're doing so. TradeLast was, yeah, this is in reference to the in your slot clearing solution where you delegate. So when you delegate from Alexa Conversations to the skill, you specify which intent you want it to trigger. So what happens is you actually get another API, not an API, another JSON request sent to your skills backend. And so it's up to you how to determine how to handle that. So what you can do is you can see like, oh, hey, I've come back, and you can also specify some slot values too. So one of the things that you could do is you could load up that slot value with some information from your skill, from the Alexa Conversations side of things, letting it know that, oh, hey, you weren't delegated here by user speech. You were delegated here by my backend code. And so, well, technically, it came from user speech, but the reason why you're going from there is you manually pass it over with your skills backend. And so in that case, then you could immediately because you can go from your interaction model to Alexa Conversations, you could do another delegation back from your interaction model back to Alexa Conversations. And so it's essentially like, you can think of it as intent chaining, where you chain multiple intents together. You could do something similar like that, where you go from Alexa Conversations to your interaction model, interaction to Alexa Conversations. I wish I had like a chart or like a diagram, because I feel like I'm waving my hands around and hopefully it's making sense. But you wouldn't need to trigger, well, the fact that when you do the delegation, you're getting an interaction, another intent, you're getting another JSON request sent to your skill. You are triggering the intent, but it's not being triggered by the user's voice. It's being done through programmatically via code. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Oops, did I lose? Okay, can you point me to how to implement Alexa Conversations using my EC2s? So we don't have any specific like examples on how to do that with an EC2, but what you would need to do is just set up a web server and just make it HTTPS over port 443. And they're blowing leaves outside of my apartment building, so I apologize for any noise in the background. Let's see. All right, we got another question here from Urban Blaster, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Question: I have went through the PetMatch sample, but set up to do my own backend. Okay, so you're not using Alexa hosted. Should the initial launch start in the conversations welcome? Right now it's doing launch requests to my backend. If you provide your own backend, what is the flow? Conversations welcome and then backend. Okay, so that there's a lot to unpack here, but you can definitely use Alexa hosted or AWS Lambda. It doesn't matter. The flow is going to be the same regardless. What determines what's going to answer first, whether it is if you get an intent, a launch request when you open the skill, or if you just have the welcome prompt return, depends upon how you've configured the Alexa Conversation. So one of the things that you can do is when you go to the Interfaces tab, there's a checkbox that you can check that says make Alexa Conversations default dialog manager. So if you have that checked when you open the skill, the welcome prompt will be what greets the user. And that does not involve sending any requests to your backend. But if you leave that unchecked, then the interaction model will be what receives the request. So in that case, you will get a launch request sent to your skills backend. So other than that, everything else is the same. When Alexa Conversations determines that it needs to send a request to your skills backend, you'll get a JSON request, and the type, instead of being a launch request or an intent request or session ended request, it will be a dialog.api.invoked request that you can then send, or then you can create a handler that looks for that and responds. So hopefully that answers your question, Urban Blaster. I'm going to move on. Let's see. Oh, yep. Zach Zeta, responds with the, check that to see if it's default. I love it. I love the audience participation and helping. You're all being very, very helpful in answering each other's questions. That's I love it. I love it when community comes together and shares their knowledge. I like to refer to chat as the collective brain. So I love it. All right, let's keep going. We've got Zach Zeta here, says, sorry for being the kid who won't stop raising his hand on each question. Nope, that's fine. I'll make it up to you by winning the hackathon. And I don't know what Kappa HD Kappa means, but Yes, no, keep your questions coming. There's no stupid questions. We're here trying to, you know, uh, I think it's great that everyone's on here, taking interest in Alexa conversations. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do. There's a lot of things that it opens up for you, and no, I want to do my best to answer your questions. And when I can't answer them, call to those who can give me the direction I need in order to provide an answer. So Laldi Lab says, cool, adding custom values to Amazon.number. Like it, we'll try that. Yes, experiment. Let's see, experiment, play with things, break things. That's the way how you know things work or don't work. Okay, M. Beaker says, this is probably a dumb question. Nope, I don't think so. There are no dumb questions. That was previously covered, but I have only seen TypeScript examples for conversations to date. Does the Python ask us support conversations already? So you can definitely use Python for Alexa conversations. And while Python is not my best language, I just started picking it up and learning it here. But if you go to the Alexa conversations Slack group that we created for the hackathon, we did create a Python channel, and Jeff Nunn, who's one of our resident experts on the team for Python, he is in this channel here answering your Python related questions. And so I would recommend that you come in here and ask away, and he will help out with those questions. And then there's also Amit. He's also in there as well, answering your questions. There we go. There's Amit. So any Python related stuff, ask them. If you want to see like examples, they might not, they won't be Alexa conversations examples, but we do have examples for Python in our tutorials, or sorry, in our GitHub repository. So if you go to github.com/Alexa and you type Python, all the Python examples will pop up. I think if you click this too, it will show you all the Python examples. But in any case, the SDK is similar in that you have can handle functions and you have a handle function. And so you can write a can handle function that looks for the type being API.invoked, sorry, dialog.api.invoked, and then you can write a can handle. The one thing that you would have to learn or do differently than the Alexa the Node.js is like return the payload, the JSON, in the proper format. And I'm not sure how you would do that with Python, but I do think that Jeff may have, I don't see in here, but Jeff also did an Ask Me Anything. And so there might be, if you go to the Ask Me Anything channel, an example here where he shows how to do that. So, and if not, just go in here, tag Jeff, and ask away, and he will get back to you. Okay, let's move on. Oops, I didn't mean to open terminal. Textedit. Here we go. Cool. TradeLast says, for the slot clearing solution, I can create an intent handler that's basically a dummy just for the purpose of slot clearing, then do. Yes, I think that would work, TradeLast. But again, I'm not confident that this is the best solution for this. And so what I'm planning to do is once I, have a conversation, an Alexa conversation with my colleagues about this, I'll have a better solution that becomes the best answer. This suggestion that I have is an answer, but it's probably not the best one. Let's see. And Beaker says, wonderful, thank you. Let's see. Alex Rabo01 says, any example conversation examples with Android or iOS? I mean, conversation examples. I'm not quite sure what your question is here. Like, is it you want to build an iOS or Android app that has Alexa built in? I'm not quite sure what it is that you're looking for. If you give me a little bit more information, I can give you an answer. Lolly Lab says, thanks. Great session again. Off to break some different things. Cool. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We're right at time, and I'm amazed. I was able to get through all the questions this time. And yes, and keep your questions coming. I've been noticing as time goes on, your questions are getting more and more complex, which is awesome. It means that you're learning. It means that you're experimenting. It means that you're finding, you're pioneering. You're going through and breaking new ground. I think there's a lot of really great enthusiasm that I'm seeing here, and it makes me happy. Let's see. Alex Bro says, no, use Alexa to send notifications. Yeah, Alex Rabo, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer your question. We have office hours tomorrow at 9, so I would suggest bringing your question to the general office hours. You can also ask your question in the Slack group, and I will provide a link to that. Oh wait, I have to copy it from this page here. So yes, if you're not, there we go. Boom. So that's the sign up link for the Slack. So a couple of housekeeping items. So tomorrow, be sure to tune in at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Nathan Grice and I will be going through the pizza reference skill. So we'll be tearing that down, and that's going to take place over 2 days, Tuesday and Thursday. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have an Ask Me Anything in the Slack group. So we have a nice little Ask Me Anything channel, and Nathan Grice will be our special guest. So I think this is perfect because Nathan and I will be on Tuesday, walking through tearing down the skill. And then on Wednesday, he'll be live in the chat on the Slack group answering your questions. So if you have any questions that come up during the stream, you can, and you didn't get them answered, you can bring them to the AMA and ask there. And then we're going to be doing the AMA, the follow-up to the, the wrap-up of the pizza reference skill on Thursday. So we have a lot of content to deliver to you to this week. Thank you for all your enthusiasm. I really like the questions. Keep them coming. And yeah, happy hacking. I'll see you tomorrow and on Slack. So thanks for tuning in, and good luck with the hackathon.